Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of You Can't Come Over, But You Can Come In. My guests today, the first time I've had guests that are in the same room. We had Maddie and Tay. It's the first time we've had people who are actually together and make music together. Miss Clare Bowen and Mr. Brandon Young. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Hello.
This is lovely.
Hello. So good to see you guys. How have you been doing in all this crazy?
We've been,
Crazy.
yeah, we've been hiding out at home pretty much. I mean, holding up, cooking all our meals, getting creative in the kitchen, which is fun.
Yeah, it's not been bad at all. It's just sort of, we miss our families. That's about the hardest part, I think. And watching what's happening in the world is something that you have to stay aware of, but taking in doses so that you can keep taking care of one another, kind of thing.
I know, the news is dangerous. I have to take breaks from it.
Oh yeah.
Bit of a minefield, but
yeah, we kind of ration ourselves with news, because it's easy where you could just turn it on and it's always there and it's this constant presence in the house, and so we kind of we've tried pretty hard not to go down that road, but I think this has been the first time since we've known each other that we haven't been able to have the option of just hopping on a plane and going to Australia and seeing Claire's family. So that's been mentally really tricky, I think, for you, because it's the first time that we haven't had the option of just just go.
Just because it's so hard it's I'm high risk, so I can't it's not that safe to get on a plane. It's life is just different, but I have to there's all of the negative stuff, and there's lots of things that are different in people's lives now. The whole world is different now, but focusing on, it's interesting how the quiet sometimes brings such clarity and makes you, I don't know, I've discovered all these things that I hadn't had time to think about for a really long time. From like taking first aid courses to starting to sew again, to discovering things about music and our friends, and like connecting in a different way. I don't know, it's well. But we're good. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, I'm as good as you can be in these times. I feel like my problems are mostly champagne is what I say, I mean, I'm pretty lucky in a lot of ways. And you touched on a couple things that I wanted to ask about, also, not only are y'all the first couple I've had on here that well, Maddie and Tay aren't a couple, but make music together. Man, if they were a couple, that would be starting some rumors. But anyways, you being from Australia, I wanted to ask you how you feel like that has shaped your music.
Oh, wow. Well, my family, we have a lot of Celtic roots. So it's like country music is here. It started with African American music. It's such a diverse and broad genre, just as a genre of music. There's so many subgenres in the middle of like what country music is. So I think it's funny because coming from Australia, people describe my music more as Americana, but it has these folk roots from, I guess, the Celtic side of my family, and just growing up in the bush and listening to artists like Slim Dusty, but then also listening to Indigenous artists like Gurmo. It was incredible. God rest his soul. Both of them. I don't know. I don't know if I make typical Australian music. No. I don't know. I didn't come up in the music industry in Australia, so I have no idea.
Yeah. I always like to, even no matter how well I know somebody, and I feel like I don't know you guys as well as I would like to, but I feel like I know you pretty well. I met Brandon when I was first out on tour with Jennifer Nettles, got him to play the Opry with me. Fast forward a couple years later, you and I are on tour with Sugarland. You and Brandon, both of you are out there playing. But so I got on your Wikipedia, and it said that Dolly Parton was a big influence on you. Now, I know that people, it wasn't you who created that Wikipedia, but like I always just assume everybody's, if you listen to country radio as a kid, everybody's country radio, I always assume was the same, but that it wasn't necessarily, I'm tongue-tied. It might not have been. I mean, the first time I went to Ireland to play, everybody asked, when I would ask them, do you like country music? They would say, we love Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, I just wonder in Australia what country music, what country radio was, if you were listening to that.
I didn't listen to a lot of the radio when I was a kid, but I do remember listening to, there was a memory that came back much later in life. Once I got here, I was learning Coat of Many Colors to sing for a breast cancer event at the Opry, and I realized that I'm learning the song, and I was like, how do I already know this? And I had heard it on WSM radio sitting in my granddad's kitchen when I was really little. So Dolly was always a recognizable voice to me. It sounded kind. You know, I went, you know, a long time without having ever met her, or really, you know, just being a kid and being way over in Australia, being very far away from all of this, but she just sounded like a kind person. And that's sort of that embodiment of country music where it's for family. It's like everybody's welcome, or they should be. And I think that's why Dolly's always been a really big inspiration for me, but she wasn't somebody that I heard played a lot on the radio. It was more my parents' record collection. They played me everything from like Paul Simon to a lot of Johnny Cash and and lots of Dolly, and then, you know, I think the first CD I owned was the Priscilla Queen of the Desert soundtrack because my godparents are awesome, and the Cranberries. So there's like this whole, there wasn't just one thing that I was introduced to, and the thing that I was pointed towards was musical theatre, which is interestingly kind of that very, I mean, it is storytelling. All music is storytelling, but it's, I don't know, like the musical that you wrote is that kind of stuff is what I was brought up on as well. So I don't know, it's hard to, because I didn't come up in the music industry in Australia, I just listened to a lot of different stuff. And then my world kind of opened up when I got here. I don't know, I don't really know, I don't fit in a box.
I think that's great. I mean, most of the people I know don't fit in a box. Yeah. And most of the music I like doesn't fit in a box. So you mentioned musical theater. I remember when we were on tour with Sugarland, you and Jennifer Nettles and I having a conversation specifically about Victor Victoria, which is one of my favorite musicals, and you had been in that.
Glorious. Yeah, loads of back at Catholic all-girls school. Some of the teachers were really confused. But yeah, that one number, Le Jazz Hot, is so much fun. But that kind of stuff, like, that's, I don't know, it kind of makes you jump out of your skin without having to be you. So one of the things, and I'm probably rambling a bit because like we don't talk, I mean, none of us talk to a whole lot of people anymore. We're all like in the house, like, oh my God.
It's fine to ramble. Go right in.
I'm really good at it.
We got lots of fans on this that are tuned in, so you can ramble all you want.
No, I can't remember what I was going to say. I lost it. Oh, right. Oh, that's right. Coming up in musical theatre, like when we were talking to Jennifer about that musical and how much fun it is, and you jump out of your skin as somebody else. And so, like, a massive privilege for me has been getting to jump out of my skin on stage as me, doing a live show. So it's like this strange introduction to the music industry. Kind of still navigating. But
I was reading that, you know, one of your first performances in Nashville was actually at LP Field in front of tens of thousands of people as Scarlett O'Connor, just stepping out there, or maybe not as her, but it was.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was. It's the Wikipedia page. It's like I read something. I've read it and I'm like, did that happen? I don't know about that.
I know me is younger than I am, so I just let it stay there.
Yeah, like, it's fine. Yeah, LP Field was, I'd just come to Nashville and the pilot had just gotten picked up, and they were playing the thing on what I learned to be called a jumbotron. I didn't know what that was. It's very large, and my head was on it, and it was huge. And I had just met Kenny Rogers and his wife side stage, and was completely just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, or I've just come from Australia, and then from LA to Nashville. That made sense. Yeah. You know, I'm just like small town person coming into this huge arena of people, and it was packed because it was fanfare. AMA week. And I was like, I just met a country music legend, and I don't know what to do. And then I turned around, and the audience was there, and my head was on the jumbotron, and I looked out and thought, they were all screaming because the Nashville show was coming, and they were all so lovely about it, because they could have been totally like, who are you and what are you doing and why are you getting out of town? But they were lovely. And I remember thinking, I don't think they know I have like $18 in my bank account. It was just, my social anxiety was like through the roof. I didn't know what to do.
Well, you know, the great thing about country and Americana music fans, I think, is they don't care if there's $18 in your bank account. In fact, they might love you a little more.
A little bit more.
Now, Brandon, how did your musical journey begin? We've talked about Clare.
I grew up in a tiny little Baptist church in New England, and Mom put me up in front of the audience when I was 5 years old to sing my first solo, and I was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt and rainbow suspenders, and that was my first taste of being on a stage. And then I was a terrible athlete, so sports never really worked out so well for me in school, so I always gravitated towards the musicals and things like that. So I would sing through school, but it wasn't ever really, and there were records that I really loved, artists that I loved to listen to, but the idea of writing songs and the idea of actually doing what I was listening to on records, that was an impossibility. That was like for aliens from outer space, you know, Robert Plant or Johnny Cash or U2, you know, like these artists like that were doing these records that I was listening to and enjoying. That wasn't something that I ever had aspirations to do. And then when I went, continued on in school, I just kind of sang my way through school. And when I got out of school, I decided I was going to try to do something creative. And it was either, you know, acting or music, really. And, you know, LA was a real far distant land, you know, and New York was quite close to home. So neither of those felt right to me. And somebody suggested Nashville. And so I asked my parents to get me a guitar, and they got me a $250 Yamaha acoustic guitar. I moved to Nashville, having never written a song and not knowing how to play guitar. And I learned my 3 chords, and I started writing songs. And my first show was, I don't know, probably maybe 2 years after moving here. At the Exit Inn, I was opening for an artist. I played like 5 or 6 songs acoustic, terrified, like sitting on a stool, just trembling. I don't think I could have even stood on that stage. I was so nervous. But I sat on the stool and I played my 5 songs, and that was my first show. And I also kind of feel like I'm a terrible self-promoter. So
it's all right, we'll brag on you.
So I just kind of made a decision that, you know, I just have to keep trying to write better songs, because if the music is good, then I have to believe that people will somehow attach themselves to it, come back. And I did that for quite a few years in Nashville as a solo artist, and kind of, you know, that whole dog and pony show. And then I ended up going out on the road with John Hyatt. I had a publishing deal in Nashville, and like they do, you know, that ran its course, and I got dropped, and I was standing there scratching my head going, I don't know what I'm going to, I feel like I'm a failure. Like I've completely just, you know, I tried to put this thing together and build this thing, and I just was crushed. And a buddy of mine got hired as John Hiatt's tour manager. And he said, hey, I'm going out to do this run. You want to come out and sell merch? And I paused on the phone. And he goes, look, dude, I know you don't have anything going on. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I went out on the road with John, and I sold T-shirts and CDs for him for probably, I don't know, 6-9 months. And I became his drum tech, guitar tech, and then ended up in his band. And I made 3 records with him and got to sing with him a bunch. And
you guys got a Grammy nomination.
We did, yeah. Cool. So we got, I was out with him for 9 years, and that was an education that, if I had all the money in the world, I couldn't have bought that education. Just to be around such an amazing craftsman of songs and to watch his process, writing songs in the back lounge of the bus or playing night after night with him, and then actually going in the studio and getting to make 3 records with him. I got to learn so much from him. And I feel really fortunate. And then, Claire and I met, and we've been playing music together ever since.
You know what I love that you just said, Brandon, that no one else has ever said on here? It almost made me cry, is when you said you were crushed. Because we've all felt that way. Mm-hmm. Every one of us. I don't care who I could have the most successful artist we all know on here, and they might not say it, but they've had that moment where you're talking about when you lost your publishing deal. And people don't really touch on that, but this business is, as fun as it is when we're all out on tour with Sugarland, or, you're in the studio making records with John Hiatt, or Claire is in a hit TV show. There are a lot of those moments where you think, what am I going to do?
Oh, man.
How am I going to pay my rent?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And when that happened, I was renting a 1-bedroom loft apartment down in the Gulch, before the Gulch was the Gulch in Nashville.
And it was rough before it was the Gulch.
It was rough. And we rented a 1-bedroom loft, and we split the rent, and I slept on the couch in the living room. And I lost my publishing deal. I was like, oh man, this is not going to go well. So I ended up working behind the bar at Sambuca for a little while. That was,
That's so cool that you did that. I think it's important to, like, a lot of people. I had a second job. I had 3 jobs when I was back in Australia and trying to be an actor, and it's not the immediate glamour, and if it is, it's not real. And even when you're in it, it's not like when you're doing okay and you get to buy a house with music, like that's amazing, but it's still, you still have those times when it's so exhausting that you're just so bone tired that all you can do is cry. We're so lucky to get to experience that. Mm. But I just think the fact that one of our first kind of dates was after we declared that we could not live without one another anymore. Brandon had that same friend who you lived with in the little apartment. You guys, they're still the best friends. He pulled a favor, and he asked Brandon, could you come and sell merch for John at the city winery because somebody dropped out and we need you to come and do it. And I was there with Brandon, and it was like the height of the television show, and I was really nervous. He made me not nervous about being out. And it was so lovely, we just sat behind the merch table and sold John Hiatt's stuff for him and chatted. And it was, I don't know, you had talked about working at Sambuca and how I'd had this experience as well where people come up to you like, what, aren't you that person who was in that show? Like, what are you doing here? Or like, yeah, it's like, I'm earning a living. What does it look like? What beer do you want? Yeah. And that's another kind of education and like an experience in humility and remembering where you came from and being grateful for the times when it is really amazing. I don't know, because if you lose that, where you came from and how hard you worked to get to the place that you're at, that it just, I don't know if it is as good if you lose that,
Yeah, I was just to hear, I remember hearing the story a while back, and I don't know if it's true because, you hear stories all the time, but about Adam Duritz, the lead singer of the Counting Crows. And I loved that band. And I heard, and I don't know if it's true, I'll ask him one day if I ever meet him, but that when he would come home off these tours, he'd go and work at a pizza shop in his hometown, or in his town where he lived, to kind of ground himself again, kind of bring himself back down, to pull himself out of the clouds of rock stardom, and put his feet back on the ground. And I always thought that was so cool. Like, I always thought that was so, I was like, man, I want to be like that. The funny thing is, when you get dropped from your publishing deal, that's the furthest thing from your mind. You're just like heartbroken and trying to figure out how you're going to make it work. And you're like, I don't want to go work at the pizza shop. I don't want to go work behind the bar. But yeah, I guess, probably it's different when it's a choice. But
you made the choice.
But interesting, perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worked at a cedar fencing mill in my hometown on my way to Nashville. And there are times when I feel really blocked that I'll think, if I went back to work at that job for 2 weeks, I can't imagine the ideas that would come.
Sure.
And some of that is just from taking yourself out of the daily grind of trying to be creative.
Sure.
And putting yourself into something that is labor intensive, that I don't want to say it's mindless, because it's not, but you don't have to think of anything. You just daydream all day while you're doing your job.
Sure.
It's a different part of your brain.
Yes, a different part of your brain. I think about that though. So I can see why he would do that.
Yeah. Kind of unplug a little bit, put yourself in a completely different perspective. And then I think sometimes when you don't have to be creative, is when that kind of opens up for you and things start clicking.
Totally. So Claire, do you think without the TV show Nashville, were you still heading for Nashville, Tennessee? Do you feel like your was pointing towards here?
It's funny. I have these weird little things that have happened in the past that I don't know, they pop up in the future, like, oh, I saw this before. It's weird. I was back in Australia over a decade ago, I was doing a voiceover, and one of my favorite accents was like very much like Dolly's. It was something that I liked to do in hospital when I was a kid, because this is not isolation. When you're in real isolation, when you're like, there's a glass screen and then your parents are on the other side of it, everybody is in like, so this for me has not been anything like isolation, but I understand that people are still like, it's a thing to get used to. It's like wearing masks.
Sure.
I used to wear them all the time. It's
right.
It's relative. So one of my favorite accents that I learned to do from just watching movies that my dad would bring home from the States was Scarlett's, and I walked into the casting with this accent that I had learnt back when I was 4, I think. And I had never met a Southern person, so I probably would have offended all of them. I don't know, they seemed to agree with it. It didn't change from the casting to the very last.
Which tells me, I'm not from the South, but I've lived here long enough to be a Southerner, and we all like to think we can do an Australian accent, so.
Oh, it's the hardest one.
It's so hard. I've tried.
And there's so many different ones.
Yes, so I don't think you offend anyone.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think when I got told I was moving to Nashville because I got the job, I was like, great, where's that? And I knew of it, but I didn't know how special it was. I knew it was special. I knew it had really amazing history, but I didn't know. I didn't know. It's the most beautiful place to live, and a really wonderful place to find me through this strange little character that I played for 6 years.
You probably knew more about WSM radio than you actually did about Nashville itself.
I knew the Opry. That was wild the first time.
When you said that really, like, because we could get the Opry when I was a kid. It was hard to get it, but in Washington State. But the fact that you could get it in Australia is mind-blowing.
I don't know how. Granddad was he liked his gadgets, and everything was.
He worked in a museum, so he was.
Yeah, he was loved tinkering with stuff, and just nothing was updated. So it's like I don't know how he did it, but he did it, because I remember sitting at the kitchen table and hearing Elvis in Coat of Many Colors and then hearing WSM radio and then being there was just, it's crazy. And I feel I'm very lucky because, you know, I got to keep all of the best parts of that television show. That whole experience was wonderful. I found the love of my life, who they then asked to be on the television show as well. They were like, we really like Brandon. Do you think he would come in for the last episode? I'm like, I will ask him. Will you let him wear black and kiss me? I'm like, yep, okay.
I remember, because you mentioned the musical that I've been a part of, and it started out with the Opry and Steve Buchanan, who I also love immensely. And I remember seeing a picture of Brandon on a plane with Steve, and I was like, what is going on? The next thing I knew, you guys were together.
I remember, so Steve brought me to, before I met Brandon, just before I met you actually, he brought us to, we used to have these like nights of welcoming the writers in to try and give all the writers that came out from California an idea of what Nashville really was. And you know, Steve, he never like goes halves in anything. And you were playing, it was like we were putting on a guitar pool for them. And I was sitting on the front of the rhyme. Yes, yeah. And we turned all the on. Oh, sorry, it cuts out when I accidentally talk over you. I was sitting on the front of the stage and I was writing in my book, and I was, like, again, I said before I met Brandon, I was a much shyer person. I think people would think that I wasn't interested in talking to them because I was just I didn't grow up around a normal setting on a dryer. Just different upbringing, hospital, and then way out in the bush. But I was so nervous. I saw you walk in, Brandy, and I loved your music. I was like massive fan, and I was sitting on the front of the stage, like writing in my little book, like I thought I just got up the courage to I'll go up, and Steve was talking to you about something, and you were practicing, and I was just about to get up, and I was like, okay, I can go and say hello to her. And then you walked away. I was like, God damn it, go back to my book. Like lost all my steam, but here we are.
That's so crazy, because you know what I remember about that night, other than I'm sure, well, I remember you being there. I remember Hayden Panettiere, and I remember Connie Britton. And you guys were all big stars. And it was Hollywood Foreign Press. I remember that. But I also remember being really upset that night, because like Brandon talked about losing a record deal, or not a record deal, publishing deal. I had just found out that I had been yet again passed on by a record label. So it's crazy how life is funny. How you were sitting there thinking, oh, I love her music. And I'm sitting there tuning up my guitar thinking, is this ever going to work out?
Sure.
You know, and crazy how that works. But I remember that from that night. You've touched a couple times on, and I'm glad you have, because I wanted to ask you about it, having cancer as a child. I mean, being told, I'm sure was probably as scary, probably more scary for your parents than you, but being told you have 2 weeks to live at what, 4 years old?
Yeah, my mum had taken me to a bunch of doctors, and our one GP, who he came and apologized later. He said that she was paranoid, and I remember he sent her home and said, you know, it happens a lot, especially with first babies. And they're like, oh, you haven't had much sleep, have you? Like, as a mother, I don't know what that's like, but you know, they told her she was paranoid, sent both of us home, and then Dad came back from a trip, and he'd been away for 3 days, and took one look at me, and they, I think that morning I felt really bad because I couldn't get up, and so there was this old stray cat that used to come to the door, and I used to go and meet it every morning, and I was only just 4. I felt so guilty because I was sitting watching this cartoon that I didn't care about, and usually I cared about. It was, you know, an animal cartoon. I loved those, but I didn't care. And I felt so bad that I didn't care that the cat was at the door. And I thought, I'll get up and I'll go and see the cat. And I tried to move my legs, and they wouldn't move. So Mum and Dad rushed me to the emergency room, and that's where I was diagnosed. And the doctor who misdiagnosed me several times came and apologized. So that's how it got to that stage of being so dire. And my body's really good at hiding things when there's something up. But yeah, I don't know any different. It's something that made me and what I am, the treatment was pretty brutal. And they hadn't, there wasn't a lot of record of it being tested on anybody. So it was like they said, there's nothing we can do. And my parents begged and just said, anything, please. The only thing they refused was radiotherapy, which in my case would have just I wouldn't have survived that. But it was, I don't know. There are memories that come back that, I don't know, there aren't that many really, truly terrifying ones. I really don't like lumbar punctures. I would go my whole life without ever having another one of those. But my poor parents are the ones who had to hold me down to get a needle in my back. So for me, I overheard the doctors say that I was dying. And I asked Mum, are there heaters in heaven? Because we'd never had air conditioning. And it was very cold in the hospital. And she somehow held it together and said, they don't even need them. It's so lovely there, but you're not going there yet. You've got to hold on. So that was all right, well, just got to hold on. And it was an interesting time to be in a hospital. I was refused a blood transfusion initially because they thought my dad was gay because he was a flight attendant. And half of our family, hardly anybody in our family is straight. Most of us are LGBTQ, and it was just it didn't dawn on me until much later in life how disgusting that was. My parents pioneered they fought for dedicated blood donation because there was this massive HIV outbreak in the blood bank. And of course it was blamed on the wrong people. And there was just all of this. It was a strange time. I remember parents pulling their children away from me because they thought I had AIDS, because I looked so sick. So it was one of those things where at the same time that was some of the worst of it. But then the beautiful parts was that growing up in a hospital where everybody looked, my buddy.
Phelan wants to say
everybody.
Welcome on here.
Yeah. Phelan, can you put your head up?
First dog we've had on here too. Mine are usually barking in the background, but everything you just said doesn't. But people don't know that.
Phelan, sit. Sorry.
Okay.
Sit down. Baby, sit. All the way down. Thank you. Good job. Oh, he's stuck halfway. Go. You can do it.
There you go.
There we are. All right. Oh my God.
I appreciate you sharing all that because it gives a little insight into you. You two are both, if you two have children, it will be, I can't even imagine how beautiful the child would be. But what people don't know is what beautiful people you are on the inside. Every bit as beautiful as you are on the outside, you are on the inside. And I think that story really tells a little bit of part of the reason why. You had to endure more than a lot of people endure in a whole lifetime before you were 7.
Yeah.
You're sweet. Thank you. Growing up there, we were all the same. And maybe this time in history, having everybody such a massive lot of loud voices for equality and equity, that's the way I was raised. Because in the hospital, you don't even know if you don't even know if the next person is a boy or a girl because no one's got any hair, and everyone's, you look at one another for the beautiful different colors that you are, but everyone's just a little bit gray because you're all on chemo. So it is about celebrating every single day and appreciating it for. Oh, it's the feather.
Yeah. Okay, I'll back him up. Sorry.
That's okay. This is a day in the life of what we
things that will make you the most popular guests we've had. LGBTQ supporter, animal lover. that the fans of this show, if they weren't already fans, they're super fans now, and they're probably on their way to Australia to get a hold of whoever discriminated against your poor dad for being a
oh, that poor guy. Yeah, dad nearly punched him. I was so glad he punched him. Yeah, I don't know. That's part of what drew me so much to music, because it is a universal language, and there's so much that we can do to bring people together with it. It is. The dog has desperate separation anxiety, so he wants to be here.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably been used to having absolutely all of your attention through all this.
All of it, like undivided. And if you look anywhere else, he's like, and it takes him like 8 days to sit down because he's about this tall. Sorry.
How much does he weigh?
He's probably 200 pounds now.
Wow.
It's somewhere between 180 and 200 pounds.
You have to be really careful. If he's laying down somewhere, he gets up really quickly, and if he stands up and you're stepping over him, it
just take you off your feet.
Gone.
Oh yeah, my best friend, they had an English Mastiff.
Oh yeah.
And she was, I want to say, at her healthiest, she was about 220.
Yeah. And
then, as her health declined, she lost weight. But their son, he was born after they got her. And when he would walk in the house, when he was 3-4 years old, he would just put his hands up like this, because that tail was like a lethal weapon.
Oh, absolutely.
Whack him upside the head.
Oh, yeah. He'll take a wine glass, wine bottle, whatever, right off the table.
So I appreciate you guys spending so much time with me. I would love it if you could take us out on a song if you felt like that.
We would love that.
Sure.
Good.
Play.
Could you play that one, the old one, please? The one I love.
Sure.
We prepared a couple for you just in case, and you can cut the last one if you want to. This one's.
Oh, we would love. Give us a little concert. I mean.
Okay. We've kind of been staying quiet. I think this time has there's been a lot to deal with behind the scenes. That's been really emotional, and everybody has that stuff, and there's the stuff that you don't make public. And I feel like seems to be a common theme what we've been talking about is those times when you feel like, what am I going to do now? And it's amazing. It doesn't matter where you are in life, that feeling can hit. And it doesn't matter who you are. You can be like king of the world, and that feeling can hit you because whatever happened, and you don't know where to go. And one of the things I said to Brandon this morning, I was like, look back at how far you've come, the trail that you've left behind you that is good and kind, and you did your best, and when you didn't know, you made the effort to learn more and do better. All of those things, like that's what puts more good in the world. That's kind of what it's all about. And when you are feeling that, like, what am I going to do? Where do I go now? Is it over? Is this it? You have to remember that. You have to remember where you began, where you came from, and remember that you did not come this far just to come this far. I don't know, anybody out there who needs to hear it. We're all in the same boat. This is
an old song, but Claire asked me to play it, so it's been hanging around a little while.
I love it. I'm gonna cry. Sorry.
Well, I know I'm far from perfect. Silver tongue, dancing shoes to be your fairy tale guy. But when I'm wrong, I'll say sorry. $20 is I'll cry too. Rest assured, I'm gonna do my best to be a better man for you. I can't sing like Elvis or play like Jerry Lee. Only thing I was ever good at is loving you and being me. Girl, I'll keep your secrets under lock and key. Mistakes you made when you were young make no difference to me. 'Cause love, it holds no grudges and it's eager to forget. It carries on till the break of dawn with little to regret. I can't sing like Elvis or play like Jerry Lee. Only thing I was ever good at is loving you and being me. You're the one I pray for. You're the one I know will be here through good and bad, thick and thin. I made my house home. And I can't sing like Elvis, play like Jerry Lee. Only thing I was ever good at is loving you, being me. Ooh.
Beautiful. I can see why that makes you cry, Claire. That's gorgeous.
You're crap at bragging on yourself. He wrote it at a really lonely part of his life, and I think we've all been, it's in that place where you have to remember how far you've come, but when someone hurts you, it's just like, am I ever going to find that person? And one of the things about, actually this song is a new one that we'll play for you now. We haven't played it for anybody else.
Oh.
And we really do, so we thought we'd play it for you.
We might screw it up.
We might forget the words, but nobody will know. But we wrote it with our friend Melissa Fuller, who is lovely.
Great.
Yeah, she's really cool.
So good. She's so good.
And we've never sung it for anyone, but before Brandon and I met, we had both separately decided that we were probably never gonna meet somebody who loved us the way we loved. It just, I don't know, and I'm sure you've been there where it's just like, well, this is dreadful. And you think, look, I put all of this effort in and I couldn't have been nicer, and still just
didn't work out.
Yeah, but I'm so glad I wouldn't trade any of the stuff for the world, because when I met him, it was like the whole world just sort of, somebody turned a light on, and I know I was meant to find him. So this is called I Would Have Found You.
What are the odds? What are the chances? After the others I had to dance with, out of this world and all the stars. Who would have thought I'd be where you are? At just the right time, in the right place. I spent my whole life turning up late. I know a lot of people don't believe in fate, but I do. I would have found you. Down to my bones, I was made to be the one no matter what. All my life, you're my guiding light, shining so bright. I would have found you.
I think people might have noticed.
still believe there is a reason everything happens in the right season. If I went back with what I know now, save us the heartache, 'cause I know somehow in all of that time, all of that space, better late than never, finding love forever. Guess a lot of people don't believe in fate, but I do. I would have found you down to my bones. I was made to be the one, no matter what. I get to love you all my life. You're my guiding light. You shine so bright. I would have found you. I would have found you. Everything we've ever lived and we've been through. You're the one, no matter what. I get to love you all my life. You're my guiding light. You shine so bright. I would have found you. I would have found you. You're the one, no matter what. I get to love you all my life. You're my guiding light. You shine so bright. I would have found you.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. First time anybody's heard that, everybody that's watching. Brandon and Claire both have solo projects out. Go get them. I mean, you can stream them, but we prefer you buy them. And maybe there'll be a duets record in the future.
We're working on it.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me. You guys are just lovely in every way. I was feeling a little bit, it's raining a little. I was feeling a little bit down when we started this, and you've put sunshine in the sky for me today. So thank you.
You are lovely. We
Thanks,
miss you.
Brandy. We miss you.
Can't wait to see you again properly. Thank you for having us.
See you when this is over.
Yeah, we'll see you when it's over. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.